We were always taught that God will look after you and God will never let anything bad happen to you. I just could not believe that this God could just, in a snap, do that. I became an atheist. We grew up as 7 kids. Every parent was shared. My aunt was my mom, she was my dad. My mom was somebody else's mom and dad. My mom died in a car accident, died with my grandma, my mom's sister, my cousin brother, and my brother-in-law.
What did the tragedy do to your relationship with religion? Married your childhood love.
When we started dating, it was a no-no. I was Jane and he was Catholic. My dad would be like, "What? Stop talking about this, Michael. You need to stop seeing him."
Your dad eventually got quite ill.
Unfortunately, smoked too much. The impact of that, plus issues he had with his heart. He passed away in my arms.
One of the things that you like to say is live each day as if it were your last.
Losing my mom made me appreciate life. Tomorrow may never be.
Seema Dhanani-deSouza grew up in a joint family household full of love through profound loss, questions of faith, and the search for identity. What she discovered is a philosophy rooted not in strict rules, but in living each day fully, gratefully, and with courage, redefining what it means to belong. How does a tomboy end up owning a beauty business?
I was a tomboy. Let's start there.
Seema Dhanani-deSouza, it's such a pleasure to have you on the podcast.
Thank you, Carol. It's such a pleasure to be here.
Great. Seema, you've got a very interesting history that doesn't start from the day you were born. It actually starts from, I would say, 1918 and 1928. They're quite significant years in your existence today. Tell us why.
Yeah, not because I'm 100 and something years old, I guess, but yeah, so my history didn't start off with just myself. It goes all the way back to India, where I'm originally from. And 1918 and 28 represent the start of our lives in Kenya through our grandparents. So 1918 is when my dad's dad moved over from a place in Rajasthan, a little village called Chelagaon.
Where in India is that?
So Rajasthan is on the northwest. Basically, is next to Ahmedabad. You know where we had that earthquake some time ago. Gujarat, in that kind of space. And Oshawas. So I'm in Oshawa. Oshawas basically were kind of congregated in that area. There, some back and forth with invasions by the Persians that forced them into this place called Ossia. So that's where we're from.
What are Oshawas? Is Oshawa a tribe? Is it a religious sect?
It's not a religious sect per se. It's Oshawas because we are from this place called Ossia. And so that's why we're called Oshawas.
Okay.
But most Oshawas, in fact, all Oshawas are Jain. So the religion that we follow is Jainism.
Okay.
So the name just comes from the fact that we've come from Ossia. We call it Gaon. Gaon means village.
Okay.
So Ossia Gaon. And actually, funny fact, I went to see it in February of this year. Such a lovely visit. And it's just, insistence from my now dad, my uncle, who said, "You have to go and see where you come from." So me and my sisters and my brother kind of trooped up there. Such a historical place. We saw temples that have been there since 800 BC, 900 BC. Such beautiful architecture. And in fact, there is a temple that was set up here in Nairobi as well, in a very similar kind of style in Parklands. I don't know if you've seen it, called the Oshawa Majanvari. And there's a temple within that community hall. So beautiful, stunning. So yeah, it was just such a nice way to kind of connect with our roots and understand a little more about where we come from and our religious roots as well. But yeah, so that's where we're from. And in 1918, my grandfather made a journey on a boat, actually. I think he took about 4 weeks to get here from
This is now
India.
your father's father. What do you call your grandfather?
Bapuji.
Bapuji.
Bapuji, yeah.
Oh, Babuji.
Bapuji.
Oh, Bapuji. Okay.
Yeah, so that's grandfather.
So Bapuji gets on a boat?
Bapuji gets on a boat, and Ba, who's my grandmother, also eventually comes and joins him and gives birth to 9 children. And one of them is my dad. And all of this was in Mombasa. So he basically landed in Mombasa and started off his life there, coming in with the aim of trying to kind of make some money. You know, in India, there was a lot of drought where we lived, and therefore opportunities were really, really minimal to kind of make anything. And so the option was, let's go and see the world and see what we can try and find out there. And that's actually why he got on the boat, just to look for a better life. And when he landed in Mombasa, there were a couple of other Indian families that had already moved. And one of them, a gentleman called Kaman Nepa, one of the very early settlers, I think he moved over in 1908 or something like that, and had started some textile trading at that time. And, you know, within the community, there's a really very strong desire to help one another, and to kind of get people on the path of success, provide, you know, and so forth, and nurture. And so he told my grandfather, come and work for me. There's textiles, you know, we need to make and sell. So that's actually where he started his life in Mombasa. And then within the same breath, my mom's dad, my Bapuji from my mom's side also, he moved over in 1928 within a similar kind of space, but trading textiles as well, and then moving into trading of other goods as well at the same time. So he moved over in 1928, and obviously the settling in the community had already grown by that time. So there's so many more people to support him in his journey and so forth.
And so there are people in the coast who are telling, maybe they're sending a letter to Shags now, or Shia, and saying, come, there's opportunity here.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's how the community grew.
That's exactly how it was, that there is space for you to grow in this beautiful place called Mombasa in Kenya. Come over and we'll help you, you know, and that's basically how our community grew. It was just to say, come over and we'll help you make something of yourself here. And, you know, I guess also representative of how it is that Kenyans had accepted the Asian community at that time to come and, you know, do trade and do different things with them. So they settled in really, really quickly. So in Mombasa, we had and it's still there actually. We grew up in a house in Hospital Street, just behind Blue Room.
This is in the main CBD today.
This is in the main CBD today, actually. And I grew up in that main CBD. So, I mean, I was born in Nairobi, but, you know, holidays and so forth were always spent in Mombasa. And I grew up in Mombasa in CBD, where you could hear, you know, Lingala music from all the street vendors downstairs, and honking of motorbikes and buses, and you know, having things like Mombasa mix and, you know, the chevra combined with the local food. And it was such a lovely experience actually, Mombasa, growing up. And so yes, we grew up in that, we call it townhouse. It's such a weird name for it, but that's just what we call it. And our entire family was squished into that little townhouse, and that's how we grew up.
So Bapuji set up the house so Bapuji on your dad's side has 9 children, right?
Yes. So that Bapuji, and maybe let me explain. So my Bapuji on my dad's side actually lived in Ganjoni, in Mombasa. Yeah. And my Bapuji on my mom's side lived in Blue Room. And I don't know what it is. I guess it's the maternal side. Usually you grow up at your mom's grandfather's house as opposed to your dad's grandfather's house. So we spent a lot of time in my mom's grandfather's house in Blue Room. But my dad's grandfather grew up in Ganjoni as well, so maybe half an hour from the town area. And yeah, grew up in an environment where they built that community in Mombasa, you know, from scratch, because I think at that time they were maybe, when he moved here, there were maybe like 100 families or so. And so started kind of setting up a community center, putting up, you know, a temple, which they really believed in, setting up schools, you know, so Shah school actually is, you know, set up from that time. So there's so many things that they started putting together so that they could ensure that, you know, life would be sustained and the community would grow at large, and there were opportunities for that community, and also ways to integrate it within the setting that we are in, which is the amazing Kenya that we're in.
And your grandparents' marriage was arranged? So, because your grandfather arrives,
Yeah.
your grandfather on the other side arrives, and they're both single men.
They're single men. They get married very young, actually. So both of them got married, and I think my grandmother must have been 15 when she got married on my dad's side, and probably around the same age on my mom's side as well. And in those days, life expectancy wasn't that high as it is now. So actually, on both sides, my first grandmother actually passed on, and they both remarried. So my real grandmother from both sides then moved into Kenya as well, and completely arranged. They would not know who they're marrying at that time. You would just be told, this is that person's daughter, and we know the family, so she's 15 and you should get married. It was as simple as that. It was a transaction, right, at that time. Funny that, because sometimes you wonder whether those transactions actually have a better chance of success, because you work hard at them. But that's how they got married, is they got married through an arranged marriage. So the 9 children that I'm talking about, 2 were from the first grandma, and 7 from my grandma. And then on the other side, 1 from the first grandma and 7 from the next grandma.
Blended family on both sides, essentially.
Yeah, that's right.
So your dad is born in Mombasa. He's now first generation Indian.
Yes, he is.
Yeah,
amazing. He was an amazing guy, my dad. My dad grew up in an environment where all of his siblings were quite well-to-do. So my dad's older brothers, both were educated. My dad's older brother, who I now call my dad, actually went to study in the UK, finished school, came back, was a leader within the community, did so much for them. Actually, throughout his life, has been supporting the community, been on the board of trustees for the Visa Oshawa boards, Oshawa Education Board, and so forth. So he's always been a well-to-do. And my dad, on the other hand, was, a complete ruffian, if I may call him that. He used to smoke, he used to drink, he used to ride a motorbike.
He was a party guy.
He was a. I think that's where I get my partiness
he was a
from.
Party guy.
He was an absolute party man. He loved women as well, and I say that respectfully. He was a really cool dude, and he didn't finish school. I think he had better things to do in life, like fall in love with my mum, which is what he did. And that's where their love story started. My mum, on the other hand, actually studied in the UK. She was also a secretary for the Chief Justice's offices. At that time, that was 19, goodness, how long ago was that? 19?
Long enough that you have forgotten.
Yes, long enough that I've forgotten.
Probably in the 90s, 80s, 90s?
90s? No, 1960s or 19, just before, we got into the marriage and kids and so forth. So she was working at that time. Okay. So my dad fell in love with my mom. And actually what he used to do is he used to go and park his bike outside the Chief Justice's office and wait for her to come out.
This is in
every
Nairobi?
day in Mombasa.
Oh.
In Mombasa, every day.
Okay.
Outside the law courts. And, for a long time she resisted, but then obviously she fell in love with his charms. There's no one who could not fall in love with my dad's charms. And so they fell in love, which during that time was a very, very unheard of thing, because even at that time, the arranged marriages was how it is that things would work. Obviously, because of my dad's background, my mom's dad wasn't very keen on the marriage because he was looking for somebody who was educated and, was a community leader and so forth. And also she was younger to my aunt, who had to get married first. So there's an order, you have to get married in your age. And so what happened, ironically, is that my grandfather chose my dad's brother for my mom's sister. So my mom's older sister, okay, was then chosen to be married for my dad's older brother.
Chosen by who? By
my
the
mom's dad. Both the
Both
parents.
Bapujis.
Both
Okay.
Bapuji. Oh, you've caught on.
Okay,
Both
so
Bapujis,
Bapuji-
exactly. Bapuji A and Bapuji B
Yes.
agreed
Yes.
that my mom's oldest sister and my dad's older brother would get married.
Okay.
So they got married and moved to Nairobi, where my uncle set up a factory, a rubber factory, still in existence, called Rubber Products. And he still goes to work every day. It's incredible. He's such an incredible man. So they moved to Nairobi, and my aunt went to help him in the factory one day. And as she was helping him, in the rubber factories, you have these kind of machines that arc the tread, and her hand got stuck in the tread. So she actually lost her 4 fingers in the machine. And as a result of that tragedy, whilst it was really traumatic, at the same time, my grandfather, so this is my mom's dad, said to my mom that, okay, I will let you marry my the love of her life, who was now my uncle that had just moved, brother. Yeah.
So 2 sisters
married,
married 2 brothers.
2 brothers, yes.
And and Bapuji mom,
Yep.
okay, was like, okay, I'm not happy about this, but you need to go and help your sister out.
Yeah, because she needs help with cooking and cleaning, and if she has kids, you need to help. I mean, it's can you just imagine how life would be without your fingers?
Yeah.
So that's actually how the love story culminated into a marriage, and the condition was that they'd have to live together.
Now,
so
all 4
of them,
okay,
all 4 of them lived together, and so so my mom and dad moved to Nairobi at that time, and that's where our childhood, I guess, started within what I call my shags, which is Kilimani, on Jabavu Road. That's where our house was, a beautiful
so it's
house.
This big house that's housing 2 families, essentially.
2, and at a certain point, 3, and maybe even 4. I guess the community is just like that, where living together and trying to help people out as they're transitioning through different things would happen. So our house was always open to people who needed somewhere to stay. And so in as much as it was a beautiful house, it was never like, you have a room of your own, you have a room of your own. I think there were 3 bedrooms. And so there was a room for each family. And then my dad's younger brother also stayed with us for a really long time. And then any visitor that would come in from any part of the world and transiting would also stay at home. So
each set of parents had their own room.
Yeah.
And then all the kids were operating like a dormitory, essentially.
Pretty much. That's how we grew up. And so actually, and it's an amazing thing. I say it from a positive perspective because there was so much laughter and fun in that house. So we grew up as 7 kids. And we used to call ourselves the Secret 7. I don't know if you've read the Enid Blyton, the set of books. And literally that's exactly how it is that we were. We'd have this little house hideaway that we'd go and make these secrets around what we're going to do and which plan was next and so forth. And we, every parent was shared. It was not like, my aunt was not my mom. She was my mom, she was my dad. My mom was somebody else's mom and dad, and it was like shared parenting.
Yeah, so there was cross-disciplining, yeah. So you could be walloped by your aunt or your uncle, and vice versa.
100%, you could be walloped. I have been walloped by my aunt so many times. My aunt actually was the one who pushed us to study. She was very, very strict about reading and about making sure that you're revising for your exams and so forth. I mean, she really, really pushed us. My mom, on the other hand, would be the cheeky one and would be feeding us nonsense all the time, spoiling us rotten and, things like that. My dad was a really strict dad. So like the Von Trapp family children from The Sound of Music, we'd have to stand up in a line and we'd be given assignments. You have to read a book and then you have to write a book report at the end of the day. So we'd stand up in a line and he'd ask to show the book report and he'd go kid by kid by kid. And my youngest brother would never have done anything. And he'd be turned around and kicked on the backside. Literally it's like, I don't know, he would never learn. This was a repeat episode every single Sunday. in our house. So no, I mean, so everyone had a place, and like I said, we were 7 of us, and regardless of who the mom and dad is, I say I have 6 siblings. Most people don't really understand that. They say, but that's your cousin, and I'm like, no, that's my brother, that's my sister. That's how it is that we've grown up. So yeah, an amazing childhood.
And at 16, you had an unmitigatable tragedy.
Yeah, that was a huge turnaround for us in terms of our life. So at 16, I was out. Actually, I was out that day with my sister. We'd gone out for dinner, and I got a call from my brother saying, come home. This is about 7:30. And I was like, and there were no mobile phones. They'd called the restaurant of where we were. And then I said, we've just got here. What's wrong? He said, just come home. So we turned into Jabavu Road, which is where we live. And there were cars all the way, to the mosque that's there right now, all the way to our gate. So maybe about 800 meters just worth of cars. And we walked in, my sister and I saw my dad. And I knew something had happened. And then my brother said, your mom's gone. I was like, what do you mean she's gone? And he said, your mom's gone. There was an accident. I literally dropped to my knees. I cannot explain. In fact, I'm even feeling, I don't know how to explain that feeling where the floor just disappears from under your feet. And I had to keep asking, what do you mean? What are you saying? And then my dad was there. He was trying to hold me and my sister at the same time. And everyone is crying. And you're just confused. What are you crying about? Like, that's what I was asking. What's happening here? Anyway, my mom died in a car accident and died with my grandma. So that's my mom's mom. She passed away. My mom's sister passed away. My cousin brother passed away, and my cousin brother-in-law passed away as well. 5 of them in the same car. They were driving back from Eldoret. They'd just gone for prayers. And yeah, tragedy. When you have 5 bodies in the house, it's just a surreal experience. So yeah, one of the first kind of life-changing moments for me that just reshaped who I am today, I think.
And your father then became a widower. You lost a mother, but you're still growing up with your auntie and your uncle. So there's still a semblance of structure.
Family. Yeah. Absolutely. So, I mean, and I'm forever grateful, actually, that my aunt and uncle were there. My dad had a really difficult time getting to terms with what had happened. I think all of us, but, obviously, he kept a picture of my mum in his drawer next to his sofa. And every night he'd open the drawer, look at that picture, and it was a picture of the scene of the accident. And he would cry and cry. And obviously, had a couple of too many whiskeys, and I'd have to come down and say, okay, Dad, let's go up, let's go to bed. And it was a routine, you kind of have a lot of responsibility that you pick up just because of the fact that now you need to look after people who used to look after you,
How did it alter the family dynamic? And what did it do to you?
Yeah, you stop being a kid. You just literally stop being a kid. I was 16, my brother was 10, my sister was 14. My oldest sister was 21, and obviously my brother and them were not even in Kenya. They were in the UK. My sister was studying in the UK as well. And so what happened is I was a quasi-mum and really grateful that my aunt was there to help, but of a 14-year-old and a 10-year-old. My brother could not sleep in his own bed for almost I'd say like a year and something. He would not be able to sleep because he was just scared. And so he'd sleep in my bed, It just grows you up so fast. Like, and I actually went through a rebellious, phase as well. And I'm so grateful to my aunt who actually managed to keep sane during that process. I went through a period of such rebellion. lashing out at everything, talking ridiculous stuff. There were so many proposals that were coming from my father at that time as well, widower. So there's this widow, would you like to get together? And I would scream, no, you cannot, because how can you replace my mom? And, in the heat of the moment, you're not realizing what actually is good for your father. You're thinking you're protecting him, but actually you're holding him back in some sense as well. So I was going through my own turmoil, and at the same time trying to make sure that I could pass my O-levels and A-levels to get into university, and ensuring that my brother and sister were okay.
That's a lot of stuff to carry.
It was a lot of stuff.
Was there grief counseling in those days?
No. Grief counseling? No. Grief counseling for me was family. That's literally what it was. My aunt and uncle were at home, and they were there for us. They were incredible people, because they just mopped up 4 kids, as a direct responsibility without any complaint whatsoever. They just assumed that role. And friends were your counselors. I had some amazing friends. And actually at that time, I met Michael. I actually met Michael when I was 14, to be honest. Michael is my husband.
Okay.
Michael is my lovely husband. So I met him when I was 14. We were great friends, and he was there with me when my mum passed on, and at 16 we then started becoming a bit more. And to be really honest, he's been there for me through a lot. Like, those are the kind of relationships that you will just never ever forget for lifetimes to come, like that trauma bond that they're helping you kind of work through.
Okay. What was the impact on your father?
So my father, the party guy, stopped partying, I guess. He really did try, he tried to engage with friends. He used to try and have friends over. He just was so lonely.
And that's the paradox here. He's in a house full of people, but he's incredibly lonely.
Completely lonely. And I think he had to go through this process for him to come to terms with his loss. And so, during that time, there was a lot of Seema has to step in, or Shitol, my older sister, has to step in, or my aunt has to step in, or somebody has to step in. But there was one point in time where there was a switch, which I noticed with my dad. And that's when I realized, okay, he's back. And that was when he walked into mine and my younger sister's room one day and says, yo, girls, what's up? I'm like, what? What's up? And he's like, yeah, what's up? How's it going? I'm like, Dad, what is going on with you? He's like, no, like, you can, I just wanted to tell you, you can tell me anything, And I'm like, what is happening to this man who has just been quiet all of this time and now has come to talk to me about stuff? And I think it was his way of trying to be mom and dad. Yeah. I think he'd realized that he'd been absent for some time, and actually was trying to make an effort to say, I'm here, in as weird a way as possible, by saying, what's up? I mean, which dad says what's up at that time, But I think he was back. He came back and realized that, we're still there. And his happiness should come from what's left. I think that's the big realization that he had. And so a new kind of life began for us. Even though he was lonely, after a couple of years, we kind of came to terms with the fact that he also needed a companion and a partner and so forth. So he eventually did find a partner, which I think really helped him, just with the day-to-day things and so forth. I would never say that anyone can replace my mom, but I think as you get to a certain age and stage, you really just need that companionship. And I think that's what he found in another lady who now no longer lives with us, but he had a great, final years of his life with her as well. Yeah.
What did the tragedy do to your relationship with religion?
religion for us was something that we were indoctrinated into by our parents. And so we'd have to go to temple, we'd have to pray, we'd pray in the car on the way to school, on the way home, etc., etc. And, we were always taught that God will be there and God will provide and God will look after you and God will never let anything bad happen to you and, all of those kind of things. And I think at that point in time where my life changed and, this tragedy hit our family, I just could not believe that this God that everyone would talk about would let something like this happen. I mean, my mom was the most loving human being you could ever meet. She had the heart that could stretch for families. She could cover so many children with her arms. That God could just, in a snap, do that. And that's when my relationship with religion kind of broke quite significantly. And, I started questioning, I started reading more about the origin of the earth through science and what are the alternatives to explain our existence on this earth. And I just lost that relationship with God, to be honest. I became an atheist. I, for very many times, had arguments with so many people about the fact that, no, God doesn't exist. What are you praying for? I mean, that rebellious stage of you're praying and then what is going to happen? Do you really believe somebody's listening? I became, it was a rough time. Let's just put it that
angry.
way.
I mean, when I lost my father and he had been unwell for about a year, he had a very rare form of cancer. And when he died, so we watched him suffer and then he passed on. And I also completely lost faith in God, because why? He's such a nice, he was 64, he was young, wonderful, wonderful man. And I got extremely angry and completely cut off. But I think I moved to agnosticism, which is I'm just not believing I didn't believe that there wasn't a God. I just organized religion and having to pray to a higher deity. I just completely lost that. And it took reading a really good book called The Shack that brought me back into a level of spirituality and actually understanding that God does things for a higher purpose. But what I'm hearing from you was it's endured and you've moved to a level of spirituality rather than religion. So you believe that there is
energy.
What do you mean by energy?
Yeah, so I mean, it took me a long time to also get to this space, and I've had a few friends who've really helped me along this journey. But it's just around how I make sense of this world and how I connect science to explain why we're here, why we're in existence, why is there an energy, Carol, between you and I that I feel, and why there's no energy between me and the next person that I don't feel. And that, for me, is the basis of spirituality. Spirituality is my connection with the universe. And, how it is that we are who we are and how our soul translates into that energy form that connects with people. And that's what I believe in. And if you look at it really from a religious perspective, religion and the books that are written around it are just a set of rules and guidelines around how you live. Okay. And spirituality for me is rules and guidelines around what I believe is important in terms of how I live. And that's what I practice now. Yeah. But it really has taken me a long time to even accept that there is energy in the universe. It's taken me a good 10, 15 years, maybe 20 years, until I've come to terms with the fact that, or I've connected. Yeah. I've actually connected.
Connected to what, as it were?
Connected to what?
Because you're saying you've connected. So what's that connection to?
It's a connection and a belief in people and this ecosystem of people, and that we all have relationships. It's more grounded in relationships that we have, more grounded in the fact that, I don't even know how to explain this, more grounded in the fact that you came to this earth to do something bigger than, than what you see on a day-to-day basis. I don't know if that makes any sense. You were put on this earth to achieve a purpose.
You have a purpose.
Yes.
So it sounds to me like a purpose-driven life. You have a
That's
purpose.
That's exactly what it is. It's a purpose-driven life.
Yeah.
And throughout that life and the journey that you have on this earth, you've made relationships and connections with people that I feel were destined to be connections that you were to make through that. And as you've done that, you've done it in a way that kind of makes you feel at one with yourself and peaceful. Religion is supposed to actually make you feel peaceful at the end of the day.
Note the use of the word supposed.
Supposed to be,
yes,
yeah.
That's interesting choice of words.
Exactly. And for me, I've chosen that spirituality is what makes me feel at peace.
And yet you then went ahead and married your childhood love, Michael, and created an interfaith marriage, as it
system.
were.
That's right. And so, yes, I met Michael when I was 14. I started dating him when I was 16. I married him when I was 25. We're now 23 years married. So it's been a long history. But actually, when we started dating, it was a no-no because I was Jain and he was Catholic. And Michael, the name Michael used in our house, my dad would be like, "What? Stop talking about this, Michael. You need to stop seeing him." And it's because in those days, I think, not from a perspective of it's from a perspective of not understanding that my dad was upset. He would just automatically have that assumption that, our religion is focused on this, their religion is focused on that, and how will you find a common ground to be able to connect with? And so he said no for a long time. And my extended family, because extended family is quite important as well within our culture, also said no. My mom's side and my mom's side specifically. My dad's side actually was quite okay eventually. But we fought for 2 years to get married. My
because
dad,
you wanted to respect both sides of the families and do it not alone.
Oh, to be honest, at one point I was ready to elope. I kept telling Michael, let's just forget this and we're going.
It's too much drama.
Yeah, it's too much drama. And he's like, no, we're not. We're doing this the right way. So we're going to be patient and don't worry. It's going to be fine. They're going to love me, is what he said. And so after 6 months, my dad realized this is serious. And so this was when I approached him. I was, 23 or so. And I said, Dad, I really want to get married to this guy. Just take some time to know him, So after 6 months, he came around and he said, okay, fine. Let's meet for a coffee. And so he called Michael to his office at Spinners and Spinners, called him to the office and said, come over, we're just going to have a chat. And so Michael went to the office. And I remember that time, I was petrified about what was happening. Michael didn't call me for 2.5 hours. And I was like, oh my God, has my dad gone and beaten this guy up? What's going on? And actually my dad they were so, relaxed. My dad introduced him to my dad's older brother, which is a big thing, to introduce your potential son-in-law to your eldest brother. That's like a sign of approval.
That's right.
And so the way that my dad would introduce Michael, because Michael doesn't drink, doesn't smoke, he's quite the opposite of my dad. Kept introducing him to all my family members as, this is Michael. He's a very sober fellow. He doesn't drink. He doesn't smoke. That was his entry. And so, I guess at that point when he'd been introduced to my eldest uncle, it was a sealed deal from the dad's side. My mom's side took a long time. My aunt, who is now my mom, said, okay, fine. She's gonna sort this wedding out. And actually, for a couple of months into the marriage, some of my mom's side didn't even speak to him and so forth, but we still went ahead with it. It was an amazing wedding. I think Michael still gets not surprised, but he still gets tired at remembering that 7-day wedding that we had. 7 days, literally 7 days. Different functions of every day. At our reception, we had, I think, close to 2,000 people. And at the reception, you stand in a line and everybody comes to greet you and say congratulations. And so,
2,000 people.
2,000 people. Bride and groom standing there. And, you have to smile and say, thank you, thank you, thank you. At the end of the evening, my face was like, sucking this smile.
Your jaws must be aching.
They were aching, and Michael was in shock and horror. And I just told Michael, listen, my dad wanted to do this. He said yes for you to get married. Just shush and stand. That's what's going to happen. But, it's a big deal for us to get married and within the community, because, it's not just a you and Michael thing. It's a entire extended family and community thing. It's a big thing. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. And then we had a kind of Catholic style, Goan style reception, where we had our speeches and things like that. So it was a nice, fun blended experience.
Yeah.
There's one time my Michael's best man was about to put the coconut down, and the priest was like, "What's going on?" It was quite comical as well. So, but it was really, really good fun. Now Michael is religious, so he believes in religion. He's a Catholic, but he doesn't go to church on Sundays every Sunday. He believes in praying from anywhere and everywhere. He's actually the sweetest boy, and that's where I picked this thing up. When you're driving and you see either a dead dog or a cat or whatever it is, any animal or soul that's in pain, he'd kind of do the sign of the cross. So that's a habit that I've picked up from him. And it's, he's quite universalist as well. He will come into our temple. He'll sit there and do his own prayers within our temple. I think he just believes that God is God, regardless of where you're doing it from and how, is everywhere. And so that made it a lot easier, even as I went through my own atheist kind of journey, because he was never judgmental about it. And it also has helped in how we've raised the kids. So I have two girls, Maya and Michaela. Maya's 18, Michaela's 15. And they've been raised being exposed to both. They do Christmas, Easter, they know the Hail Mary. They also do Diwali. They do a mix of everything. They love wearing their Indian clothes. They love going to, they to be honest, we don't take them to church and temple as much as maybe we should. And I actually was only honest with them maybe a few years ago to tell them that I'm atheist. I hadn't told them for the longest time because I wanted them to make up their own mind about God and their own relationship with God. So they now call themselves Jain Catholics, which I said, okay, cool. Whatever vibe rocks your boat, you go for that.
Yeah.
And I've had a couple of proud moments. Like there's this moment that I had with my younger daughter, Michaela. She was, I think, 8 in school, and they were talking about religions. And every child had to stand up and talk about their religion and how they connect with it and so forth. And she got up and said, I'm Jain Catholic. So the teacher said, what is Jain Catholic?
Hold on.
Exactly. Yeah. My mom is Jain and my dad is Catholic, and then we go to the temple, and then we go to church, and we're taught about doing the right thing, and this is how we do their sign. I got a call from the teacher, and I think she was hoping to have a go at me about how are you confusing your child. I just said, thank you so much for calling me. I am so proud of my daughter for actually standing up in class and being that global, religionist, if I may call it that. That was such a proud moment for me. And the teacher was just horrified with my reaction. And she backtracked really quickly.
What was the teacher expecting you to say?
No, I think she had wanted me to kind of had my children prescribed to maybe their father's religion or their mother's. One.
But it's not in anybody's. It's not in anybody's place to.
It's not. It's such a personal thing. It's such a personal thing. But I think it's not discussed in their schools because Jain Catholic. What is that? It's either you are Catholic or you are Christian or you are Hindu or you are Buddhist or you're confined into boxes, and that's what I've never been able to connect with. Why should you be confined to a box? And that's how I raised my kids. That you should never be confined into a box. You have this from me, you have this from dad, you have this from your grandfather, you have this from Vicky, the house manager. You have so many influences over you, which then create who it is that you are. And that should be uniquely what builds you. That should not be something that separates you from the world. And so I just told the teacher, thanks so much. Have a good day.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. Keep it moving.
Yeah, cheers. Exactly. So yeah.
Seema, your father and his brother's business is Spinners and Spinners, which is one of the largest textile manufacturing companies in I guess, in the region. How did that end up coming into being with your grandfather, whose first job was in textiles?
Yeah.
His first, I think you said he was hired by somebody.
Carmen Mepa, yes.
Yes, a community member.
That's right.
What's the linkage?
Well, I mean, I guess textiles was the thing to do at that time. And we were fortunate enough that my grandfather actually was, employed by Carmen Mepa in the textile space. And so as he grew, he then connected with another gentleman. This is the Dodia family. And they decided to give a stab at textiles and taking it at a larger scale. Previously, he was only tailoring and doing smaller things. And so what they decided to do is see how they could kind of translate that in building a factory that would then create things like shukas and stuff. And so that actually was the start of Spinners and Spinners in 1972, I believe, where the Dodia and the Nani family kind of combined forces to set up Spinners and Spinners, which now employs 1,500 people in Ruru. Spinners and Spinners was magical for me, actually. I spent a lot of time growing up there as well in terms of crickets on Saturday with all the families and of the staff members and so forth. They started off really small. In fact, I have pictures of the first machine that they use, this really antique little kind of weaving
and they were buying machine. Cotton locally.
Yeah, they bought their yarn locally. So they started off with knitwear, so knitting the yarn. So they bought the yarn locally. In fact, they even produced some of the yarn as well. So they buy the bales and then convert it into yarn. So they'll sell yarn, and then they took the yarn and started making blankets. And then they started not diversifying, but going up the vertical integration channel and started making sweaters. Now they make really cool knitwear, really cool, what do you call them? The
Maasai blanket. I've been to the factory.
Yeah, Maasai blankets. No, but what do they call the sweaters? Ponchos, exactly. Ponchos, really nice ponchos. They've actually just transformed from where we've come from to where we are right now. The product range has expanded significantly. Sheets, everything.
It's everything.
Yeah, they're now in really luxury camps also with the the upmarket kind of bedding. The blankets, the beige blankets and so forth. So they've really gone up the value chain quite significantly. But what is amazing is that transformation. They literally started from a small little machine, I remember, like, when I was younger, I used to get to choose what kind of sweater I wanted. So I'd say, I want this pink, I want this orange, I want this yellow, make it into a sweater. It was amazing. They'd actually make it into a sweater in one day. I was like, oh, this is amazing. But, I think more than that, I think Spinners and Spinners is so symbolic of how it is that the community around Ruru has been supported as well and built through that. It's been a collaborative kind of project with the people of Ruru. And you'll find even within the management team, you have people that have been there for 30 years, from the community. So they feel like this is ours. It's our industry. It's our business. My dad was a salesperson, a sales director there. And so that was his job. And what for me was the most magical about that and my dad is that my dad was known for, giving everybody money, knowing every single staff member's name, knowing what their kids are going through, giving back at that level, and building the communities through the relationships that he had with staff. I think for me that was the most magical bit, even in as much as Spinners is transformed into what it is today. Those small stories around how it is that you're able to set up something small and infuse and build that community through that connection and integration and understanding of the people around you has been the most magical. To now, what it is today, it's a huge business. And not only is it just Spinners and Spinners, now, the family has also kind of set up additional kind of businesses stemming out of what they've been able to build through Spinners. And all starting because my grandfather got on a boat in 1918.
From the village of Rajasthan.
From Rajasthan, from a village, Chelagaon in Osia in Rajasthan. And
Rajasthan is a province.
Yeah, it's like a province. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
It's like a state. Yeah. And decided to be brave enough to get on a boat to come here. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Your dad eventually got quite ill and passed on. And that was quite a difficult time for you guys as well.
Yeah, it was. So that was when I was pregnant with Michaela. 2009, he fell ill. So my dad, unfortunately smoked too much throughout his life. In fact, I stopped him from smoking when I was 21. I stopped eating fried food. So fried foods, bhajias, chips, all of those kind of things that people love. And I told him at 21, I used to love it. I told him, if you don't stop smoking, I'm going to stop eating this food. And he's like, yeah, do whatever. So I stopped. And after 3 months, he realized, this girl is serious. So he stopped smoking at that time. I've never eaten it since then. I've actually, for the last,
You live a bhajia-free life?
Never.
How? How is that possible?
No bhajias, yes. No
French
samosas,
fries?
Nothing.
Samosas?
Nope.
But surely, Seema.
Anything that you can deep fry, you can bake. Okay.
A baked samosa, just listen to yourself.
You should try it.
That's a meat pie.
You should.
Okay.
No, you know what? I just felt like it's something that was so sacred and got such a huge result, like a transformative result, that why should I break it? And I just didn't want to. I didn't want to jinx it. And so I just didn't eat it. And he did stop smoking, but, I think the impact of that, plus, additional issues he had with his heart. So he had a murmur in the heart. He had diabetes as well. And so at a certain point in time, we had to take him to the UK for a triple bypass operation.
What does a triple bypass look like?
You know what? To be really honest, I can't give you the exact details, but his heart's valve wasn't pushing very, very well. Yeah. So he'd get really tired because the blood wasn't circulating as much as it should. So what they did is they had to fit an artificial valve and just create some passages that would then allow blood to circulate properly. Okay. So he went for that. And I took him, actually. And he was fine, walking out and about in ICU within 5 days, like doing really well. But then when he was moved to the ward, he contracted pneumonia from the hospital. And obviously because of his smoking, his lungs couldn't handle it and crashed. We had to put him on through the vent, on the vent, switch him from the vent to the track. He was in hospital for 3.5, 4 months. And the trauma of all of that to the body actually triggered renal failure. Wow. So he had to be put on dialysis 3 times a week. And we brought him back. I mean, we eventually brought him back in October. He went in May, brought him back in October. And, seeing somebody who's looked after you in such a state where you have to look after him, and seeing him kind of he hated being reliant on people. He absolutely hated it. I mean, I'd have to sit with him for his first couple of dialysis sessions just to kind of make sure that he was okay, because it tires you out quite significantly, that process. And then now for it to kind of become a routine, switching his diet completely, so no alcohol, which is my dad loved his whiskey. No pawpaw. He loved his pawpaw. No banana. I mean, little basic things that we take for granted, he couldn't eat. And so I think over a period of time, he just lost the zest for life, He had a good 2 years after that. And then after 3 years, it was downhill. I mean, he's 6'1" man. At the end of his life, weighed 55 kilos.
Oh my God.
So, He passed away in my arms, actually. I remember very vividly. It was a Monday morning. And the Sunday before, that weekend before, we had a team building for the office. And I was in Amboseli. And I got a call the day before from the driver to say, Seema, can you come home? Because your dad has fallen and I can't get into the house. I need the key. So I started panicking because I'm in Amboseli. I called my brother and said, can you go home? Or I told the driver, smash the window and get him up. He'd had a mini stroke. And I was supposed to come back that next day, but there's something that just told me something is not right. I got onto a mat and came home. And I stayed over with him. Me and my brother stayed over with him that night. And in the morning, my brother was helping him brush, and I heard a scream saying, "Seema, come and help." And you could see he had another stroke. We thought he was, I actually even slapped him. Can you imagine the things that you do in such situations? I slapped him and said, "Look at me and focus." Obviously, he was kind of starting his journey to the end. My brother and I carried him down. We tried CPR, didn't work. Put him in the car. This was now 7:45 a.m. on a Monday morning. So luckily, we lived close to Nairobi Hospital. My husband, who used to drive a motorbike, like a cop motorbike, was luckily there. So he cleared traffic for us to go to the hospital. But he was lying on my arms in the back seat, and I just told my brother, "He's gone." You could see he's just gone. It was, he was 67 when he passed away. I don't know, like those moments again that just make the world drop underneath your feet. And I know everyone goes through grief. Everyone. I mean, it's something that you can never change about anybody's life. You're going to lose the people that you love. You're just never able to prepare for it. Even despite him being ill for 3 years, you just never imagine that time will come.
It's a great segue to, you've spun a yarn, from your roots to love, to tragedy twice over, to religion and to identity. Which thread do you think has most defined you? Because one of the things that you like to say is live each day as if it were your last. And you don't ask why, you ask why not. So through this yarn that we've spun, what defines you?
Oh, gosh, I don't think it's the one thing that defines me. I think it's a myriad of things in my experiences throughout life that actually has created me and who I am. I think, the one thing, if I was to say the one thing that really changed who I am, is losing my mom. Because that just made me appreciate life. It really did. Imagine at 16 losing the one person who's supposed to help you navigate through teenage years. You just, whenever I meet anyone who has a parent around, I keep saying, just appreciate them. Call them if you haven't. You just never know what's going to happen tomorrow. And I think that thought in itself has just anchored the way that I live, which is live each day like it's your last. I keep telling my kids, you know what? Tomorrow may never be. Do it now. And then, the other thing that I also live by is live, love, laugh. And that I think is just anchored by my family. I have the most incredible family, I must say. Everyone does. But I think, going through these experiences with your siblings, my secret 7 has really helped me kind of enjoy life. I love life. I mean, I'm so grateful for the life that I have because of the people that I have and the people that have helped me through these kind of situations. I feel like I can do anything because my brothers have my back, my sisters have my back, my aunt and uncle, are there and they're always praying for me. And my mom and dad are just literally guardian angels. I feel them everywhere. And I've started feeling them now as I've gone through this turn of spirituality. I literally feel them. I was telling my husband the other day, I actually feel my mom. I feel that she's here. And I think that family, love, laughter, connecting to the soul, I just feel it a lot more, and it kind of defines who it is that I am. And my own little unit, my little universe of Michael and my girls, that's where I get to practice who I am. Everything that I've learned over time, I really hope that my girls kind of pick up things from my experiences and how that has translated into me being who I am. Being a working mom, being, the owner of a business, being a daughter, being so many multifaceted things, and how that culminates in me as an individual. I really hope they pick stuff up from me. I really hope that they pick up the value of family, the value of bonds, the value of love, the value of living in the moment. I think those are just, I guess it's just all the experiences. It's not just one. Yeah.
You said you're an owner of a business. Working daytime, you're working as a banker, and
Yes.
not the daytime, I guess weekends, you're a beautypreneur. How does a tomboy, who preferred torches to dolls, wore trousers all the time, jumped around trees, end up owning a beauty business?
Can you imagine that? Yes, I was a tomboy. Let's start there. I actually wore my first dress when I was 13. And that's only because my mom stitched it. Otherwise, I wouldn't have. I fought like I was a boy. I have attained the nickname of the world's lawyer in my family because I used to defend my sisters from my older brothers all the time.
Physically,
verbally, however it is, don't you mess with my sisters or I'll mess with you. That's how it was. And that's a middle child syndrome, I guess, that exists as well. But also because I was a tomboy, I literally had what my dad used to call Princess Diana hair, like short hair, all my life. I think it grew the longest, when I was maybe 14, or I allowed it to grow.
So how did you get into the business?
And so the business actually happened when, this was a lot later. So I was working at my previous employers, and one of the people that I worked with, his mom had this business called Beauty Quest in Sarat Center. And he asked me to help her because, she's been doing this for some time and, needed some help to kind of get it back on track. And so that's when I met my business partner. Her name is Nika Chaudhry, a wonderful lady. She's 73 and an incredible soul who has been so passionate and energetic about getting the business to where it is. And so what I did was, 2018, I started helping her and guiding her on some of the things that she could change. She started that business in 1983 in Sarat Center.
This was one of the first shops.
She was actually the first tenant.
Open, yes.
Yes, she was the first tenant in Sarat.
Wow.
In fact, we've even got this little, placard to say that we were the first. And she started off this place ahead of her time with like a juice bar, an aerobic studio, a spa, like so many things that you'd look for now. She started in 1983. But then obviously as she grew, had kids and so forth, responsibilities grew. She cut it down to what was a beauty salon at the end of the day. And so I was helping her. My experience, a lot of it in my corporate life has been CX. And so that's what I was, customer experience.
Okay.
And so that's what I was trying to help her with. And through the process, there was a fire in Sarat in 2018, and she was unfortunately impacted. And that's when I said, okay, look, let me step in and help to kind of get this back on track.
When you say she was impacted, not physically impacted.
Not physically, but the shop, the machinery, etc., the facial machines and so forth,
okay,
had been impacted by the fire.
Okay.
And so at that point, we said, okay, let's do this. I'd always wanted my own business. I'd never thought I'd be a beautypreneur. I mean, that's something I've never really been interested in, being a tomboy. But I told Michael, let's just do this. I want to try and see how I can be creative outside of work. And so that's how I got into the business. We've transformed that space, expanded the offering. We now have another branch in Lavington. We have ambitions of growing that into 5 branches in the next 5 years. And it's just such a lovely passion project for me because it allows me to express myself in that project. In Beauty Quest, and my business partner is just fantastic. Her and her son have really kind of allowed me to kind of be as creative as I want to be in that space. I am the marketing manager, the HR manager, the customer experience person, the everything in one. Like running a small business is so different to the corporate world.
Yes. And you're navigating both because you're in the corporate world day to day.
And there's no 9 to 5s anymore in corporate life, right? It's constant 24/7. And so it's just about integrating your personal business into the life of your corporate life. And so it takes a toll on you, I think, in terms of your time. But it's really so fulfilling, like especially having your own thing. There's nothing as magical as having that, and just seeing that translate into to growth, and saying that that's you directly, Yeah.
Great. So at this point, we move into a segment called Nitpicks on the Quick.
Okay.
And what we want you to do is say the first thing that comes to mind. Don't overthink it. I'll ask you a series of questions. Early riser or sleep in on weekends?
Sleeping on weekends.
Well, you're doing 2 jobs, so I'm not surprised. Text or phone call?
Text.
Cooking a meal or ordering takeout?
Ordering takeout.
What do you like to order?
Oh, Indian. Open house.
Mountains or the beach?
Beach any day.
Travel back in time or fast forward your life?
Oh, back in time.
Where would you go?
My mom's home.
Absolutely. Favorite Kenyan dish?
Ugali.
Yeah. What do you eat it?
With sukuma, and I make it into round balls.
One thing you always carry with you?
Ooh. My medicine box, pill box. Don't ask why.
What's your go-to stress reliever?
Walking.
Most inspiring place you visited?
Norway.
Read the book or watch the movie?
Watch the movie.
Seema, you've been an amazing guest, and we thank you so much for sharing with us your love, your tragedies, your growth, your spirituality. We've learned a lot from you, and we appreciate you.
Thank you, Carol. It's been so magical to be on the show. Thank you for having me.
Great. From Ozia to Mombasa, from love to loss, from faith to spiritual freedom, Seema has spun a yarn that is textured, resilient, and entirely her own. Her spirituality, grounded in consciousness, connection, and purpose, threads through it all. Less about rules and more about how she lives and why she chooses. Seema reminds us that identity is never a single strand, but a weave of history, family, tragedy, and all the experiences that uniquely build you. And like the yarn that defined her family's livelihood, her story carries warmth, strength, intention, and the promise of being passed on. Thanks for watching the Nitpicker Podcast, where we share interesting stories about interesting people doing interesting things. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe.